Welcome to the Friendly Moms Club podcast with Jen and Karlee. We're the new mom friends you didn't know you needed.
We are creating a safe space to bring moms together, lighten the heaviness, and find joy in the everyday moments. Together, we will share our own experiences of being new moms while navigating the topics we wish more people talked about.
Join us every Monday to hear us skip the small talk and dive right into the uncomfortable.
Happy Mom Day, Karlee.
Happy Mom Day. And what is it? What is it? Drum roll.
It's a beautiful day. No,
Nailed
I don't.
it.
No, it wasn't.
It's a beautiful day. I think we got to work on different tones, though, because I'm always the male opera singer. It's a beautiful day.
But you're just so good at it. So
I know I am.
Do you change a good thing? I'm not sure.
Do I change? Oh, no.
You know.
But I don't know. I'll think about it. I'll have to practice. Because I'm not actually a singer. Like, I can't, like do other. I could even go lower, like it's a
just
beautiful
so you all
day.
Just so you all know who are listening, she doesn't do voice warm-ups before or anything.
Yeah.
Like this is just
me,
raw talent that you're listening to.
Yeah. I know. In another life, I think I was a male opera singer.
Cool.
I think I was. And you know where that got me? Nowhere.
Yeah.
Nowhere. We have a new background today. I guess this doesn't go on YouTube anymore, but if I put this clip on Instagram, nobody's going to see this.
No, we're never going to use this. But
No.
cool segue.
Cool. That's cool. So we're recording at Jen's house today because we're sick of the cats.
Baby life. Yeah. We
She's
just
cute.
switching things up today.
Yeah.
And we just did our first ever Instagram live, which was kind of fun.
We're
something different for us.
Yeah, we're cool techie people now.
Yeah.
In with the Gen Z.
We actually didn't know what we were doing. We just pressed accept. Someone else set it all up.
And I feel like
we
Instagram Live's not even Gen Z because they're like Instagram's so like Facebook to us, you know? Like they're TikTok people, you know?
Oh.
Instagram's not cool.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're not cool. But I'm okay with that. We're really just not cool people. If you follow us on Instagram, I guess this is going to come out in 2 weeks, but Henry is sick again, home from daycare. I'm so grateful that our daycare is not like outrageously expensive because I would be so bitter about how often he stays home.
Yeah,
He had hand, foot, mouth. I think we talked about in the last time we recorded, and he was out of daycare for I think a whole week and 3 days. So 8 full days of daycare he missed. And now he has impetigo, which is like a bacterial infection from like you have bacteria in your skin. We all have it. And then when there's a cut or a scrape or an insect bite, or in like his case, the hand, foot, mouth sore, the bacteria got in and they got infected. So it's so small, so little, but just knowing that it's super contagious, I was like, I can't send you to daycare.
No, it's also unfortunate that it's not on his face.
I know.
Like it's not somewhere that's covered easily.
Yeah.
That like it's
because if it was on his body, I would have just sent him in, but it's like smack down on his
goodness for
chin.
your mother-in-law who is great
know.
and was able to come over today, so we were able to still do this.
Yeah,
so
because we got things to do, people. We got things to talk about.
Before we get into it today, if you are listening and you feel so inclined to give us a review, we would greatly appreciate that.
You said that so much nicer. If you're listening, please just go give us a review. Go leave a review.
We like to hear from you, and we want to know like what's working, what's not working, what should we talk about, like what has resonated with you, and we would love it if you could take a couple minutes out of your day to do that.
Wherever you're listening, if you have time to leave an actual comment in the review, that would be great. Otherwise, you can just hit the stars, preferably 5, but really whatever you think. And that's quick and easy. It helps other people find us, and it helps us kind of keep doing what we're doing. So we would really appreciate that. That would be wonderful.
So today, let's get into it. Today, we are going to be talking about matrescence.
What?
Which is kind of a word I didn't know about it until we heard from Kelsey, who is going to be on our show soon. We're just scheduling with her, but she was the first person to ever talk about matrescence. And I remember my mind being blown. Like, I was just like, yes. Like, it was just, this concept was so foreign to me. And I just remember being so excited and like, yes, this makes so much sense. And it made things just click into place for me.
Like
so
everything you struggled with now has a word.
Yeah.
I remember learning about it in nursing school and sending the video to like every mom I knew, being like, you're not alone. Like other people are going through this too. That is such a big transition. Adolescence, people talk about, and it's very well known that.
Okay, well, let's define matrescence because now we're getting into it. So, okay, so Karlee, can you give us the definite? What is matrescence? Because
well, according to Dr. Google, I don't have my own definition because I didn't make this word up, but matrescence, it's essentially the transition into motherhood, this physical, emotional, hormonal, and social transition to becoming a mom. So everybody knows that like your whole life changes when you become a mom, but like we don't talk about in all the ways it changes.
Yes.
Like
it's just like, oh, your life changes. It gets busier. You don't sleep.
Yeah, but it's
Transition.
so much more than that. Like your body changes, your brain changes, like the way your brain is wired changes.
Brain size changes in pregnancy. Like
your
it is
boobs
wild.
change.
I just had this conversation with a friend who's having her first baby in a few weeks. She's like, I didn't know your nipples would change so much.
So much.
Nipples, areolas. Who knew? We don't
know.
Like there's the physical changes, and that's I think more talked about than all of the rest.
Not the nitty gritty things like your nipples.
Yes.
The physical talk about, people even talk a little bit about the emotional, but not really. They just talk about how motherhood is hard and it's challenging, but don't actually talk about like your brain is wired differently. You're wired to be more anxious.
Yeah. Okay, matrescence. The easiest way to think about it is when you think about adolescence, and everyone knows adolescence and the huge change that goes into when our children become teenagers, and that's readily like talked about, known, all the huge like hormone shifts.
Books on puberty. Yeah.
Yes, it's huge, and everyone knows and talks about it, and it's this shift that they go through. So why aren't we talking about the shift into motherhood?
The patriarchy. Yeah.
Right? But it makes
people don't give a shit about mom. Sorry, that's just my rage for the day.
Yeah.
But why aren't we talking about it?
It's the same concept, except now we're talking about women becoming mums and that journey and that transition. And we talk about it, and it's readily accepted, talked about, like you said, books for adolescents, but yet there's just nothing on matrescence. I don't think the word actually became like a real thing in the dictionary until like the last Google 5 to 10 years.
Let's figure it out. When did matrescence become a word? When did matrescence become?
I just don't remember, but I know looking it up.
Okay, so it's originally from the 1970s, which we heard about, but when did it become an actual word?
We're going to look this up, and it's going to be in the description if you are curious, because I'm pretty sure it didn't get added. We talked to Kelsey about this.
Maybe it's not even a real word.
Yeah, maybe it's not in the dictionary.
Yeah. Is it a Scrabble word? That is how you determine whether or not something is legitimate. Is it a Scrabble word?
The Scrabble dictionary.
Is it a real thing? Okay. The process of becoming a mother. Oh, I like that. That's a good way to say it. But, a developmental passage where a woman transitions
to motherhood.
I like how the first thing when I look up, is it a real word? You know how it like shows you the suggestions? It says, is it a real thing? Clearly some middle-aged white man said that.
Clearly it's a real thing. We wouldn't be talking about it if it wasn't a real thing. And we've experienced this. We are still experiencing it. It is a journey. And I don't even know, when does this journey end? Because I don't know if it ever does.
I don't know, because like your journey in motherhood changes, like as your kids change and age and grow, and then you as a mom changes. Like, I don't know, like how...
Is there an end to matrescence? I don't think there is, because I actually just recently met a mom at a networking event, and she was talking about how people just kind of stopped talking about motherhood after the first few years. Like people really talk about having a baby, how hard that is, how much it changes you, going to daycare, starting school, and then it just kind of like...
They're like, you're fine.
It just dwindles out, and she's like, no one talks about how hard it is when you become, like when your first child leaves home and moves out. She's like, I have 3 kids. The youngest is 11. The oldest is in their 20s, and they just moved out of the house. And she's like, I'm still in like the teenage parenting stages with my 11-year-old, with my youngest, but my oldest moved out. And she's like, the resources, no one's talking about it. It just doesn't seem to be... You know, like everyone is so focused on the beginning first few years of becoming a mother that the rest of it is just not talked about.
It's like the novelty wears off, and it's like, oh, you're fine. Oh, this again. Oh.
So I really don't think your matrescence journey ever really ends.
And I guess like matrescence is like the journey to becoming a mom. So then once you become a mom, maybe it ends, but like your motherhood journey continues.
Yes.
But it's just not that transition into becoming a mom. But like who you are and how you show, like how you show up in the world as a mom, that changes.
Yes, totally.
Because it's always a dynamic evolution.
And as my mom reminds me all the time, you never stop stressing and worrying about your kids. I don't know how many times she says that. I never stop worrying about you. I never stop stressing. I'm always your mom. Like it just never ends, right? It changes.
Yeah, we're still the kids. My mom will be like, yeah, we're going to come with the kids. I'm like, you realize that now there's grandchildren who are actually kids? That like at some point you have to stop calling us the kids.
Yeah. I don't know but do you ever?
I don't know.
But let's talk about our own matrescence journey.
Let's talk about it.
What was your expectations? Like, what did you expect it to be like? Was it like what you expected?
No, not at all. No.
Long story short, no.
Absolutely not. I wanted to be a mom for a long time. So I was in nursing school and I really wanted to be a mom. That's like what I wanted to do. I mean, I wanted it before that, but in nursing school, it was not a time in our life where it was really a reasonable thing to do. So I was like yearning for this thing that I had to like wait for. And then finally when we were like, okay, let's start trying. I have my job. I have my permanent position. Like this is the time. And then it took us a year. So I felt like I was yearning for it for so long that I was expecting to just love it and love everything about it and love myself as a mom. Because I wanted to be a mom for so long and I like thought that it was like my life's purpose and passion, I really struggle. No, that's not it. Because I thought it was my life's, we're gonna make it here. We're gonna make it. We got mom brain post lunch. Now, my expectation.
I'm sorry, I couldn't keep it together.
We may not make it.
Okay.
We may not make it. I expected that I was just going to love every part of it. I thought it was going to be like rainbows and butterflies, and I knew it would be hard, but I thought for some reason I would like enjoy the struggle because I'm like, yes, I'm ready for this. Like I'm ready for a new adventure, and like there's lots of parts of it that I expected that were true, but a lot that I was surprised about. But I was excited for the challenge, and I was excited for like this new part of me because like I was kind of getting bored, you know?
Well, sometimes you just need a change in life. Like you were ready for this change. That makes sense. That's fair. You also did nursing, like you were working in labor and delivery. It makes sense that you were like, I have got this. I am ready for this. I'm working in this life, you know, that makes sense to me that you were like, I'm good. I'm ready to go.
And I think what I expected was that I was going to struggle, but enjoy the actual day-to-day motherhood stuff. Like I thought I was going to just love making the snacks and making the cute meals and going out and doing things with them. Like I thought I was going to enjoy that part of it, which like spoiler, that's the part I don't enjoy. But yeah, I thought I was going to love the like just being a mom, you know, and like being needed and wanted. Yeah, that part's hard. Yeah. So what was your expectation, Jen, of matrescence? Like when you were thinking about becoming a mom, like what did you expect?
So I kind of had the opposite experience of you, I guess, in that I didn't grow up like always knowing I wanted to be a mom. So I never had this like long, what's that, like almost rose-colored like, glasses, like this is going to be my life's work and it's going to be the best thing ever. I'm going to be great at it. I had to really not talk myself into having kids, but it was like it was a journey just trying to get to a point where we were going to try to have kids and try to get pregnant. So my expectations of this journey was that it was going to be hard, but it was just hard in a lot of different ways. So everything I thought was going to be hard was hard, but then there was like from left field, all of these things coming in that were just hitting me and knocking me down that I didn't expect. It was a lot of like the health anxiety and the things that I was worrying about my kids that I didn't expect.
What about in pregnancy? Did you worry a lot during pregnancy?
I didn't have time to worry a lot in pregnancy, especially in the beginning because I was so sick that I didn't have time to think about things. And then as I got a little bit better, then I started thinking like I'm just damaging my child because now I'm not having the prenatal vitamins. I'm not having this. And like I started to really doubt my abilities to be a mom and then was spiraling in that. Like maybe I wasn't meant to be a mom because I'm this sick. Like clearly my body doesn't want to be pregnant. I shouldn't have done this. Like all of those, do I want to be a mom? Like I should have gone the other way. And so I had a lot of like, big doubts that way. So I expected it to be hard and it has been hard just in different ways. Yeah.
So why don't you tell us about your tell us about your matrescence journey. Like what actually happened when you became a mom?
Honestly, it's such a blur. The first like initial few months, I really disliked the first 8 weeks. And I would say the first 8 weeks were terrible and awful. And I think both my husband and I would agree that we were like, not for us.
You're not newborn people.
We are not good at this. Why did we have kids? Like we don't know what we're doing. All of these things are happening. We were just so confused. I was trying to heal from the C-section, heal from all the throwing up. I was traumatized by that. Yeah, trying to breastfeed. That wasn't working. And honestly, so the initial part of motherhood journey was just like, nope, not for us. Like we were like, we will never do this again. We are never going to have more kids. We were just literally surviving hour to hour in those first 8 weeks. So the beginning of my matrescence was not good. Yeah. It was not that beautiful start where you just have a child and you're glowing in this, you know, like pregnancy wasn't a glow. The first 8 weeks weren't a glow. But as baby got older and like with every week that went by, I was enjoying it more and more. And I do think that my matrescence journey was greatly affected after I met you and Shannon. And I think that there was a good turning point for me in that when we were able to talk about the things that we were struggling about. And when we had those moments that I was like, oh, well, I put the monitor on the other side of the bed. And you're like, I put headphones in. And like, then I was like, oh, so it's not actually as lonely as I was feeling. But all these things, all these things I was telling myself I was a bad mom because I was doing, like putting the monitor on the baby monitor on my husband's side of the bed. Like, oh, other people are doing this too. So that doesn't mean I'm a bad mom. So I kind of like had this whole like rebirth of having to reframe all of the things I was telling myself that made me a bad mom weren't actually making me a bad mom. And so I think like getting those mom friends is what really started shifting it to a more positive matrescence. Yeah. I still wouldn't say it's been easy by any means.
It's a bumpy road for everyone.
Yes, and it hasn't been like a linear, 8 weeks we're at 0 and then it just slowly got better and better. It's like it gets better and then something knocks you down again, right? Yeah. And we unexpectedly got pregnant again after, 5 to 6 months postpartum. And we weren't even sure we were going to have another kid. Like we had said, never doing this again when I was pregnant. During those first 8 weeks, never doing this again. So how did we get from that point to now being pregnant?
Lingerie.
To 5 to 6 months postpartum, finding out we were pregnant again. Like it just, and so that was a huge, I guess, changing point also, like a hurdle, but changing point in the journey too of like, holy crap. So I'm not just going to be a mom of one. Now we're going to be a mom of 2, like a family of 4. And that was a big...
You're forgetting about your dog.
I know. Family of 5, sorry, one fur baby. But that took me a very long time to come to terms with. And I don't think I actually came to terms with it until fairly recently. And like really in the last few weeks have I been like, we're a family. There's 2 children here.
Holy shit.
Like
those things came out of me.
So my baby is now Peyton is 3.5 months old. We're getting closer to 4 months now. And I'm just now acknowledging we are a family of 4 with 2 children. Like,
do you have those moments?
I'm only now acknowledging that
I'm a mom.
Yes,
and like they're almost 2. That a lot.
Crazy to me, and so my journey has been very up and down, and then it took a very big negative turn when we found out we were pregnant, and I was sick again. Yes,
you carried that burden.
Yes, but being sick again, and then not being able to be there for my toddler. And I would say for the last like couple months, I've really thought that I can't do this. And my husband went out just this week for a few hours and left me alone with the kids, which is like, it's totally normal. I wanted him to go out and his friend was visiting from out of town. Like I'm pumped that he's going to go see his friend. He needs this time. But the whole day I was like shaking because I'm like, I can't be left alone with my 2 kids. And then
it's terrifying.
And then you get like, I'm a bad mom because I'm too scared to be left alone with my 2 kids. So then I have this whole part of my matrescence journey. Like it's like this underlying thought that I was not meant to be a mom and that I'm not a good mom, that my husband's a better parent than me. And I will not, but those thoughts, right? And I will be very honest. And I think I did talk about it at one point, is that when I was in my lowest of lows with, just with Jordan. So this was when she was a few months old. My husband went out of town and I actually had terrible thoughts. My anxiety and depression was really bad at this time. And I guess just being alone spiraled into this darkness for me. And I actually thought that she was better off without me. I didn't have, thoughts of suicide or anything like that. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I was having these terrible thoughts that like, she's better off without me. She's just better off with Nanad.
Like feeling so worthless.
I felt so low. And so, I don't know, this is a whole back and forth here because that's how my brain works these days. But overall, I'd say there's been some highlights, but there's also been some really, really dark, depressing moments as well in my journey. And so I'm hoping that the glimmers outweigh, when you're trying to shift and like there's the good times and bad times, I'm hoping that we have more good times than bad times as we continue. But I also think it's naive to think you're not going to have the bad times.
Yes, the bad times will always be there.
Right?
It's hard.
And
It's
it's just
challenging.
different. They're
Yeah.
different hards at every stage. So at every stage of parenting and in this matrescence journey, I think there's just different hards that you're going to encounter.
New hards.
And so
Maybe
then you have to
they'll be-
relearn all of these new hards, right?
Maybe they'll be less frequent, but they'll be like bigger problems, and
Totally.
it changes.
Just different.
Okay, two things. One, I just want to point out how important it is to make mom friends and how that can help you like embrace your identity of becoming a mom.
Yes.
And especially like we've talked about it, both of us, that like we've struggled with the thoughts of like, we're not meant to do this. Why are we doing this? We're not good enough for this. That when you get that village of moms around you and you see that like everybody is struggling and that everybody has something they, you know, that they doubt themselves as a mother for, that when you surround yourself with people like that, you realize like, I am meant to be a mom, and like it just kind of strengthens your identity that you can be a mom and, you know, other things.
Yeah.
That's one thing I just wanted to say. You got me thinking about that. And the other one, you're talking a lot about, you know, the thoughts of not being good enough. You know, they'd be better off without me. My husband's a better partner or a better parent than I am. Like, where do you think those thoughts come from? Like, I'm just curious. I feel them too, and I don't really...
So I don't know for sure, and this is something that comes up in therapy a lot for me. I have just this fear of the unknown, and I think everyone does. But I don't believe in myself very much. And so when I always put myself down, and I think ultimately it comes from a place of a lack of self-confidence.
Yeah.
And that self-worth, and that I have spent all these years. If you listen to our last episode about people pleasing, like that has been me. I will do anything anyone else wants to do. I will sacrifice myself to make other people happy. And I think that it's just this, I lack the confidence at all in myself that I could be a good mom.
Yeah.
And then I see my husband doing things, and it's so much easier to see things in other people. And I'm like, you are a rock star. You're killing it.
When it
like,
looks easy for them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you just look like you're having so much fun and you're so happy.
It's infuriating.
And I'm just like this inner turmoil going on in me. So I think ultimately that's where it comes from. It's a lack of self-confidence.
It's so frustrating when like they are sitting there playing with the kids and having the best time, and they're laughing and they're doing all this stuff, and you're like, I'm trying to do that, but I feel so down and depressed that like I can't even enjoy this moment of watching you guys have fun, because I'm like bitter and resentful and then just like down in the dumps. And like that's a few weeks ago when I realized like, wow, my depression is really bad right now. I took Henry to the park and I literally was like, okay, let's play. And I like literally couldn't even enjoy being at the park with him. And then later that day when my husband came home and he was playing with him, and I was like, oh, like I like spiraled out of control about how they'd be better off without me, because like I couldn't even enjoy these moments. And I realized like it's not me, it's my brain, and like a chemical imbalance. Like it's not. And
I also just want to say, back on the mom friends thing you pointed out too, is that your husband also goes through a change. Like there's a huge change for your spouse or your partner, husband, in their journey into becoming a parent, but it is not the same as the birth-giving parent. It is not the same. And so those mom friends, those friends that experience the same shifts and changes as you, those are the people you need to find. Like, yes, you can talk to your husband about it. That is great if you have that relationship that you can talk about these hard thoughts. Like I really recommend. Couples counseling recommend, therapy recommend, but you ultimately, I think mom friends, people doing the same things at the same time as you is just
going through the same struggles day in, day out.
Yes, it's just key. You need to talk about these things with people who understand what you're talking about.
It's like when you get a job, or like a new job, or even the job you're in, like it's why you bond so much with your coworkers, because like you're going through the same thing. And maybe you have nothing else in your life in common. Like I have work friends who are like in their 50s and like I'm not that far off now, or even ones that are like early 20s. We have absolutely nothing else in common. Like the older ones have grandkids and the younger ones like still live at home. Like outside,
how do we date people? And you're like, dating, that's terrifying.
Yes, but we still bond and have these like wonderful friendships, even though we have nothing else in common. Because we go through the same things day in and day out, and you bond over that.
So I just wanted to point that out.
No, that was good. That's important.
What about you? What have you experienced in your matrescence journey?
Well, a lot of struggle. I was saying, like going into this, like I felt like it was my calling and my purpose. And pregnancy was hard because I really struggled mentally, and I had a lot of those thoughts that like I'm not meant to do this. And I think for me those thoughts come from the that like things should be easy for me, because in my life like a lot of things have come very easy to me, but a lot of things that are hard for other people are easy for me, and things that are easy for other people are incredibly hard for me. Like that's also an ADHD thing.
I was good.
Yeah, but a lot of things that like other people really struggle with, I'm like, pooh, that's a breeze. Pregnancy was very hard for me, and it made me feel like because I'm struggling, I'm not worthy of being a mom. And I think that's just like my continual like narrative, that when I struggle, it means that like I'm not worthy, which like I'm working on. I acknowledge that's an intrusive thought. But so pregnancy, so difficult. Postpartum, I had a great birth. Other than struggling with breastfeeding early on, like I loved the initial postpartum period. I had these feelings of like, this is what I meant to do. Like, this is what I was expecting and this is happening. Like I was in absolute bliss for like 2 months. And, you know, obviously there's sleepless nights and there's difficult times, but like I was like, this is it. I'm thriving. This is my purpose. But my whole world became like motherhood and being a mom, and like, this is my job. And then as I kind of started to come out of that bubble, I started realizing like, wait, there's all of these other things that I enjoy and that like I want to be part of my life. I was not acknowledging any of that. Like I wasn't like feeding any other part of me other than like mom Karlee. That was it. So then as I started acknowledging like, wait, there's all these other pieces of me that I'm ignoring, I started to feel a lot of resentment towards my partner for like biologically just having a different role. I started feeling like just resentment and anger overall. And then we started going through difficult times, like just with sleep, and like with him getting bigger, we were kind of out of that like potato stage. So then everything started becoming really hard for me. And that's when I think the like real struggle started as a mom, because I had this moment of bliss and then it just like was gone and I was not in a good place. But
The bubble burst.
the bubble burst.
It's like a roller coaster. That was good, but I feel like
100% a roller
matrescence
coaster.
is a roller coaster journey. It is not this linear, like, oh, it just gets better and better. You just get better and better as a mom.
Yeah.
You know yourself as a mom, and it just, it's not like that.
No, but I do think there is an really important part that we talk about. It's like acknowledging what you're struggling with, validating it, talking about it with other people. But then also like we need to have this space of like being holding gratitude and like trying to find the positive, and like not in like a toxic positivity way, and that like everything's great and we're ignoring everything and silver lining everything. Not that way, but like the more we focus on struggling and just think about how hard things are, like we're going to struggle more. So within that, we need to acknowledge the struggle and validate it and be like, yes, this is hard, but then also find ways to enjoy the day to day, you know?
Yeah.
And for me, it's all about mindset and like shifting my mindset that like, yes, I'm struggling. That doesn't mean I'm a bad mom. I can still have fun, or I can still like enjoy this moment, even though in the grand scheme of motherhood, it's hard, you know?
Yeah. And you can still be a good mom, even though you don't like that, like pretend to play. And I don't make all these arts and crafts for my kid to do. And everyone has different joys in motherhood in their journey that come from different aspects.
Different strengths.
Like you loved like cooking all these fancy things and like, oh, what are we going to eat? And like that brought you so much joy.
Yeah.
And for me, I would dread it. And it was causing me so much anxiety and stress. So just different aspects of your motherhood journey will bring different people joy. And so you don't have to be the same as the mom beside you, or, you know, your friend who also had a kid at the same time. You're going to have different journeys, and that is okay. And I think
you can't compare like your matrescence journey and motherhood journey to somebody else, because you're always going to struggle with different things. And then that comparison is like, really, like, what's the saying? It's the thief of joy. Like it is. And we all struggle with different things. We all struggle at different times. But if we're always comparing and like, oh, well, that person, like they're adjusting just fine. And like, no, stop comparing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you say that, I know that you recently had the ADHD diagnosis and you have talked about that on here. Do you think that after you got that diagnosis, you were like, oh, this makes sense, like part of my motherhood journey?
Yeah. I think just for my whole world, and like maybe we'll do an episode about it one day. It completely changed my thinking, and it just really helped me acknowledge like why some things are hard for me and why I struggle with some things. So it changed the way that I view myself as a mom, because I'm like, okay, my brain just works differently. So these are the things I'm going to, really shine at. And these are the things that are always going to be hard for me. The noise, the like overstimulation side, managing emotions, that is always going to be harder for me than it is for some other people. But there's things that I'm great at and like very creative, and my brain just works differently. So like those are things I just try to lean into. So I think it goes back to comparing, that like I can't compare myself to somebody else who has like a neurotypical brain, because we're different. My brain is just different. So if I'm always going to be 5 minutes late somewhere, I'm always going to be 5 minutes late. It's not because I don't value their time. It's because I like literally cannot be aware of time. Like time blindness is painful.
But it's such a good example. I feel like this is a very good example of why you can't compare yourself to others. Because say you are just, you don't know that Karlee has ADHD, and you're listening to her online and being like,
man,
wow,
she's organized.
Yes, she's so organized. Her house is always so clean.
It's a coping skill.
Like, why is your kitchen like spotless every time I come over? And you're comparing yourself, being like, I'm a bad mom. My kitchen's not as clean as Karlee's. Well, you don't know that that's how her brain works. And that is actually, yes, coping mechanism. It makes you feel good. Like your brain needs you to do that because you can't handle if things are out of place in your kitchen. Like,
and some people with ADHD, they can't stay organized, and they're better with the chaos. Me, not so much.
But but that is how your brain works. So we're trying to compare apples and oranges here. So our brains are completely different. Why would we try to compare?
There's mashed potatoes up here. There's no apples or oranges up here. It's mashed potatoes.
But why would we be trying to compare our motherhood journeys?
Sure.
Like, of course, our matrescence experiences are going to be different. We're going to excel at different things. We're going to have different challenges. Sometimes they'll be the same. Like, we both don't do well with the noise, with the like. Crying, and just
hurts.
It's
painful.
It like, well, you said a cheese grater to my soul. Like that is it. Like, oh, I don't even like. It hurts me inside. It's not. It's
like a kick to the.
But my husband, she could be screaming and crying, and he can just sit there, and it does not affect him. He doesn't make him blink an eye, and I'm like, how does this not?
Yeah.
Right. So everyone is different. So you cannot compare. So yes, it is good to talk about your experiences with other people. But we aren't suggesting you compare your experiences with other people. So just to clear that up, talk about it. You need to vent. You need to get out all of your struggles and actually put words to them, because the more you think about them, you ruminate, and it just gets worse, and they get into bigger and bigger. Yeah, the thought spirals. It just gets worse and worse in your brain. So something that started out was like, that wasn't good, is going to turn into, I'm the worst mom. I shouldn't have had kids. And it just gets there. Actually quite quickly some days.
The roller coaster just speeds up.
Yeah. And so, but if you can talk about those hard moments before it gets to that point, you can actually kind of bypass that terrible dip.
If somebody's sharing something they're struggling with you, and it's not something you can relate to, you don't need to tell them that. You don't need to highlight that that's not something you struggle with. You can say like, oh, like that's not something I've experienced, but it sounds so hard. Like that's different. But being like, oh yeah, that didn't happen to me. I didn't, like as if you're above it. No, because we all have different struggles.
Yes.
And like highlighting to somebody that you didn't struggle with it, just not important. Or not just wanted to put that out there. Yeah.
Yes. Well, you should have empathy for the person. Yes.
Yeah.
And there's a Brene Brown. I think we talked about this in an episode, but the video of it of like, I am here. Like you climb down the ladder with them to sit in the hole, and you just say, I am here for you. Like that must be hard. Sure. You don't have to give your examples and what your experiences was like. Sometimes that's useful. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you're just literally there and being like, that's really hard.
Yeah. And you don't always have to share your story because they shared something.
Yes.
Like a lot of people feel uncomfortable with sharing, and like just because somebody shares something with you doesn't mean you have to then like also be like, oh, I have to show them my wounds. Like that's no. And especially a lot of us are oversharers. Anyways, we're tangenting.
Yes.
We need to come up with a new name for that. So we talked about what our expectations were. We talked about what our actual reality was, right? Yeah. Did we talk about that?
Yeah. Yeah.
What advice would you give to somebody for their matrescence?
Yes. I think the biggest thing I would say is to change your expectations when you're going into your matrescence journey. So
or just get rid of them altogether. Yeah.
Yes, I think that's a hard ask.
Throw
That's
the
why I didn't say
expectations
that,
out the
because I was like,
window. Yeah.
you're always going to have some sort of
Yeah,
expectations.
that's fair. Fine.
But
Fine.
when you go into it and you are just, expectations can make, how do I word this? The greater the expectations, the harder the fall. And so when you have these great expectations, like, I'm going to be a great mom. I'm going to make all my own purees. Yeah. I'm never going to use pouches. I'm going to do all Montessori. I am going to do...
Sorry, it bothers me. I can't let it go.
Okay.
I'm going to blame it on ADHD.
Okay, but these are my examples, right? Like, a lot of people go into their motherhood being like, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and that is how I'm going to be a mom, and it's going to go great. And then all of a sudden they get into their journey and they're like, I don't have time to make purees. Yeah. Like, I'm barely surviving this, and we're not sleeping. So how, if I'm not sleeping, can I do this? And then they think they are a bad mom because they didn't do what they expected themselves to do. So I'm not saying you're going to be able to get rid of their expectations, but just try to manage them. Yes. So when you're going into it, like, that's my biggest advice is don't say you're never going to do this, or I'm only going to do this as a mom. Have an opened mind. Yeah. And like, what you think is realistic is not. So cut it in half, and then take that and then cut it in half again. Yes. Because then you're like somewhere near what might actually happen. But you also might surprise yourself. Like, there's things in motherhood that I thought I would really struggle with that I'm like, I'm crushing it. But that is easier to deal with mentally and emotionally
100%.
Than the opposite.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. But
you're like,
yeah.
Dust the
like, look at me go. Dust your shoulders off.
Yes, thank you. I'm like,
shoulders off.
You can't see it, but that's what we're doing right now.
But I'm doing mine backwards because I don't want to.
Killing it.
Yeah.
So,
but that is also because I went in with these big expectations, got pummeled to the ground, and then was like, okay, the new expectation is
you're
negative.
Celebrating
There's
the
nothing.
little wins though now.
So now when, you know, things do go my way and like say I'm like, nailed it. He ate his dinner. He didn't throw it on the floor.
I know.
Also, you can't use your baby's responses or your toddler's emotions as like a barometer for how you're doing and like whether or not you're meeting expectations, because let's be real, they're all little assholes sometimes.
But they don't know their own emotions.
They don't know.
So if
and
they're
not trying to be assholes. Just like if an adult behaved that way, they'd be an asshole. But because they're a child or a baby that like doesn't know how, like they have emotions, but they don't have meaning to them yet. They're just it's their needs. We interpret it as them being assholes. But I'll say it. Sometimes they're an asshole. What about you? What is your biggest piece of advice to someone going into their matrescence journey? You know the Lion King? I think mine is to like prepare yourself for what is actually realistic. Like, go on YouTube and watch the like honest motherhood, like realistic day in a life. Listen to our podcast. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, listen to the Friendly Moms Club. Send this to your friends having babies so they can have a realistic expectation. But I think it's similar to Jen's, is that like Jen's in that like if you want to manage your expectations, you have to actually know what happens. What to expect. Yes. Like the amount of people. Crazy concept. Yes. And people are like, I didn't know breastfeeding was hard. I didn't know babies had to be fed every 2 to 3 hours. Like these are like the nitty gritty of parenting that are like a slap to the face when you're like, whoa, I have to wake up in the night, you know, like, yes. Yeah. I think for me, one of the things I struggled with was like, I knew that he would need me and I knew that parenting was like a 24/7 job, but like day in, day out, when like every single time they need something, you're like, it's me or your part, like it's us. That really gets tiring. And I think just, I don't know how to prepare for that other than just like learning more about other people's journeys. Ask your friends, ask your parents, ask your in-laws, like get people, like talk about this more, like actually learn about it. And a lot of people in my life that had kids before me, I didn't know a lot about, like close friends, yes, but like less close people, like not in my first bubble. I didn't know a lot about their journeys until either I was pregnant or had Henry and we started talking about it more. And I'm like, wow, like I didn't know that. I wish I asked you this. Yes, a year ago. Yes, and just like knew about it, you know? Mm-hmm. And this is coming from somebody who like, I work in this field. Like I work with moms, I work with babies. I am surrounded by this and I'm still surprised at the amount of things that I learned. So like imagine somebody who like they're the first in their group. They're the oldest sibling. They don't have anything, not to compare to, but to learn from. So my thing is like, immerse yourself just in knowing things, you know, just, Yeah, we'll take some of the resources that we like, some of the books that we actually found helpful to reading beforehand. A video about matrescence, the TED Talk that's really good. And it's I have one more thing. Sorry. I have one more thing.
Okay, but I was sounding really good. You couldn't have just edited.
No,
like,
I can't.
I know, but you could have edited it to
okay, fine.
flip it.
Okay,
But
you
now,
can finish.
no, now Net's gone now.
I forget what I was gonna say. Oh, I remember now. Okay. It's important to know what is actually like a realistic expectation, so that I was gonna say so you can actually know what's going to happen, but there was something else to it that was really good. Oh, I remember. It's important to know, like, have a realistic expectation of what's going to happen, because then you can also be really honest with yourself about what's actually important. Like, is it really important to you to have cute baby outfits? Maybe it is. Is it really important to you to have a good nursery? Or maybe you want to take that money and hire postpartum help. Is it really important to you to
make your own purees?
Is, like, what is actually important to you in your journey? For me, I knew that I couldn't carry, not that it's a burden, but carry the weight of breastfeeding 24/7. I knew that it was very important for me and my mental health for Henry to take a bottle. So that's something that, like, well, joke's on me now, because he was only bottle fed for the first while because he was in the NICU, but that was something important to me. But I wouldn't have known that if I didn't know that people, like, pumped and gave breast milk that way. So yeah. No, learn about things so you know what's important to you and what's realistic. Okay, now.
And then you can set realistic expectations.
And now you can talk about the resources we're going to share.
So we are going to share some of our resources that we found helpful. Books that we read beforehand. We're going to share a video about matrescence. It's a TED Talk. But it's just a really good example of something to listen to. It explains matrescence, but actually, like, if you can understand the changes that go on in your body, you're going to give yourself some slack and be oh, it makes sense why I was this way. It makes sense why I'm crying over nothing postpartum. Mm-hmm. In those first few weeks, your husband might just look at you and you're going to cry. Yeah. And he's going to be like, what is wrong with you?
Bugger off.
That is normal. And because your body is going through so many changes, this is part of it. But if you don't know that, you're going to be like, why am I crying? Is it because I don't
think it's your fault?
I don't love my child, or like, and you just, blame yourself.
Internalize.
So we'll share some of the resources that
we'll tag some of our, sorry, finish your sentence.
I'm
interrupting a lot today.
We will share some of the resources that we liked, that we have read the books, watched the videos. We will also tag some of the
like relatable motherhood.
Yes. People who
Instagram
you should follow.
Things that like really help us feel less alone.
Yes.
Top of the list, the Friendly Moms Club. But that's us. Yes.
I don't know what is. She said no to coffee several times, but she is on like
I'm fired up. Well, I had a coffee and a matcha on my way here, so and I worked out this morning, so I think that I'm just got endorphins going. Yeah, it was a little bit of a struggle because I can't get sweaty right now. My eyebrows are healing. Allison, if you're listening, I really tried to not get sweaty.
But from one sweaty person to another, that is it literally is impossible to not sweat.
I had to put the fan like right in front of me.
Yeah.
And then Henry was up with me because I didn't want to get up before he woke up because I just didn't want to.
Which is fair.
Which I didn't. And I gave him soup cans to try to get him to work out with me. He just wanted to be held. So he was my weight for most of it, but we had fun. We had a great time.
You make it work.
Now I got endorphins.
Good. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's that.
Yes.
That's that.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah, it was good.
We always appreciate you being here.
Yep. Leave us a review. Follow us on Instagram.
Yeah. And we will see you next week. Yeah. Oh, in 2 weeks. No, not next week.
2 weeks.
In 2 weeks. Sorry.
Jackass.
We're going to get back to every week soon.
Hopefully
when our lives all kind of...
We keep saying like, oh, maybe the episodes will make them a little shorter so then we could do them every week. And then, I don't know, this one's going to be, an hour?
Talking.
We talk a lot.
Yeah, we talk a lot.
Problematic.
It's an issue. But we're going to get there again.
Maybe.
One day.
Yeah, we will. We will. We're going to. Okay, bye. Thanks for listening.
Happy Mom Day.